Chess friends, welcome back to chessmasterschool.com lectures. We will continue to discuss how to defend in a difficult position. A typical idea in defense is to exchange queens, because the queen is the most important attacking piece, and sometimes exchanging the opponent's queen will result in a better endgame. At the same time, material is needed for the opponent to create attacking position. That is why trading pieces is usually good for the defender. Sometimes exchanges can eliminate all of the attacking pieces. One of the basic ideas of good defense is to eliminate as many attacking pieces as possible. With fewer pieces on the board, it is harder to rally an attack. It is important to exchange key attacking pieces. And as you can see in this position, extracted from a game in 2006 between the international master Bokros Albert against the grandmaster Gonda Laszlo, White's most important piece is the queen. It is important for White to continue the attack with every move. He played knight c3 here, which avoids the knight's trade. Actually, I suppose that White was afraid of bishop takes d5. Anyway, bishop takes d5 is a questionable decision, since after bishop takes d5, e takes d5, White opens the e file, and Black would remain with a backward pawn on e7. It was interesting, at least, to provoke Black to take a decision with f4, since f5 will follow subsequently. Now knight c6 would be weaker than knight d7. For example, after knight c6, queen e3, queen a5, with the same idea of trading the queens on c5. This is the key point in this position. The only way to relieve pressure is to exchange the queens. Why? Because both sides have weaknesses on dark squares, and White's queen is the only one piece who can coordinate the attack on the dark squares, but at the same time is defending the dark squares in White's camp. But now queen a5 fails because of b4. When knight takes b4 will be met by knight takes e7, and now both king h8 or king g7 will lose after f5. Let's see, king h8, at least to avoid f5, f6 with check. But anyway, after f5, bishop d7, queen h6, there are a lot of threats. A possible rook lift on the third rank attacking h7, but the most obvious is f5, f6 threatening mate on g7. So after f4 here, knight d7 is much better. There's no need for Black to attack the White queen, as the queen can be easily exchanged on d4. Rook f3, bishop takes d5, e takes d5, Queen a5, the same idea, but in this position black has this long-term weakness on e7. Anyway, after rook e3, rook f8, h4, queen c5, queen takes e5, knight takes e5, rook e1, king f8, h5, rook a b8. Black has this idea of b5, activating his b8 rook, and at the same time the passive defense, the direct defense, is suitable now, since black has only one weakness, the pawn from e7. So I believe the position is balanced here. Instead of launching this attack immediately with f4, white played knight c3. Now, if black continues with natural moves like rook c8 to allow the same dangerous attack, f4. Now, if knight c4, actually this is a blunder, since after f5 the bishop is attacked, and the knight from c4 will be hanging once that the bishop moves. Analyzing such lines will provide you useful information to realize that white's queen is much stronger than the black one from d8. So doing the pieces comparison, you will soon realize which is the key piece in the opponent's camp. So after rook c8, f4, knight c6, we will see that rook c8 was a useless move. There's no pressure against c4, queen f2, queen a5, but black is in this case a move too late. f5, bishop d7, and f6. You see how strong is white's attack. With this move, white not only that endanger black's king, but at the same time it attacks the bottom of the pawn chain, e7, d6, after which the d6 pawn will be vulnerable along the d file. So after queen c3, black immediately says grasp the main idea in the position and played queen a5, f4, knight c6, queen f2, and queen c5, exchanging the queens and stressing the vulnerability of the dark squares. Exchanging the strongest attacking piece can expose the attacker's own weaknesses. In this case, the dark squares are weak for white's camp. For example, some openings are based on the activity of certain pieces. If those pieces are removed, the queen is such a piece, and king's bishop, we will see an example where the king's bishop will be trade. If those pieces are removed, the remaining pawn structure might be weak, as in this position, and once that the coordinator, which is the queen, get off the board, the attacker's position might be uncoordinated. This does not mean that the solution to defense is to exchange every piece. You can. You have to weigh the possibilities, because sometimes exchanges give the attacker even more control. It's a very delicate matter this matter of simplification. Usually we have to exchange the active forces in his camp for the passive forces in our camp. In this case, the queen from d8 was slightly worse than White's queen from d4. If queen takes c5 now, d takes, f5, bishop d7, knight a4, the concession made by breaking the phalanx here, e4, f5, in order to attack the pawn from c5 is too big, since Black can reply with tactics at his turn also. Knight e4, knight takes c5, knight e2 check, king f2, and bishop c6. While after king takes b6, the light square's bishop will dominate the knight. Remember that in order to have a useful knight in endgames, the knight has to be supported by a pawn. Such a square will be on d5, but is not reachable for White's knight at the next move, and during this time the e4 pawn will be lost, and with an asymmetrical pawn structure, the bishop is clearly better than the knight. So after queen c5 here, White continued the attack. f5, queen takes, rook takes, bishop d7, rook d1, rook a8, Black is no longer afraid of f6, since after bishop e6 he will defend the d6 pawn. Knight d5, renewing the threat of f5, f6 when Black is forced to push f6. But this is even a strong move, as it creates a blockade on dark squares, and it will support the forepost e5 for Black's knight. b4, king f7, b5, knight e5, b takes a6. b takes, and here is a critical moment. White realized that he has to slow down and force the draw, otherwise Black will take the upper hand. If White plays a quiet move like rook c1 here, after rook c8, White will remain with long-term weaknesses on dark squares, and the knight from e5 is really dominating the position. Black's next move could be rook c5 and rook b8, creating huge pressure on dark squares, while Black has only one vulnerable pawn. On a6, White has a bunch of weaknesses. a2, c4 and e4 are weak. So White was just in time to force the draw with c5, d takes c5, bishop takes, bishop c6, rook fd2, bishop takes d5, rook takes d5. When we are simplifying the position, when we are exchanging, I reiterate, it is important what kind of pieces remains on the board, not the pieces that came off the board. In this case, if we have a strong minor piece like the knight from e5, we will try to remain with opposite minor pieces. If we have a strong knight, we will like to fight against an enemy bishop, and vice versa. If we have a strong bishop, we would prefer to fight against the opponent's knight. Rook takes d5, rook takes d5, rook a8, bishop f1, a nice trap. Now try to spend a few seconds and realize why rook takes a2 doesn't work. The instinct tells us that on that case the king and the rook will be on the same diagonal. A skewer will be possible after rook takes a2, rook takes e5, followed by bishop c4. Check rook, recapturing the rook and reaching a favorable endgame. But here, at a bishop f1, black could have continued to fight for an advantage. For example, after rook a5, rook d2, e6, f takes g6, h takes g6, black has a better pawn structure, which means that he has the static advantage. He can improve the position of his pieces with ordinary moves, while the bishop from f1 is a superfluous piece. I can't see a good position for that bishop. This was the way for black to continue. Probably he was satisfied with an equal position. After bishop f1, he played king e8, threatening one more time the pawn. Rook c5, rook a2. The knight is stronger with the pawns on the same wing, but the advantage is pretty small. Rook c8, king f7, rook h8, king g7, rook e8, and a draw by position repetition was the result of the game. Of course, here black could have tried rook a4, when after rook takes e7, king h6, f takes g6, h takes g6, rook e6, king g5, g3, rook takes e4. The only one who can hope for a win by the help of domination will be black. Of course, objectively speaking, the position is equal. So the conclusion is that sometimes simplifying the position not only fulfills the defensive task, but also will assure you better prospects in the view of the endgame. Till our next lecture, best wishes.